All right, it's finally time for the cheap art supply challenge. You guys have been asking for this for ages. I did do a Crayola challenge a couple years ago, a Crayola pencil challenge, and I haven't done anything like this since. So I figured it was time to do another cheap art supply challenge. So for this challenge, I actually got all the art supplies from the dollar store. And so I have some poster board that I cut up to be a smaller size. I got some pencil crayons, some markers, and these watercolor paints. Just all super basic stuff that I got for $1.25 each at Dollar Tree. Here are the paintbrushes that I picked out. And finally, some stuff I had laying around the house. Just a Bic ballpoint pen, a regular HB pencil, and a regular pink eraser. And then I decided to get this piece of glitzy scrapbook paper. It's almost like a thick cardstock. And I also got some glitter paints that I used for detailing. Then I had this white acrylic paint that I actually got at Dollar Tree a couple years ago, but I had it lying around, so I figured I'd use that for highlights. So the first thing I did was I did some swatches on the paper to see what it was like. I also tried blending with the markers, seeing how that went. Definitely chewed up the paper, and I also tested out how the glitter reacted to the markers and to the paint, like if it made some of the color wear off, that kind of thing. And I found that it did wear off the paint a little bit, so when I did end up using that, I decided to stipple it on instead of doing strokes because that would cause it to smear. So what were my opinions on the supplies? Really, cheap art supplies aren't that bad to use, especially for just casual art. You know, if you were going to sell that art, it's not very good to use because it's not very good quality materials, and they're probably not going to last very long before they start to fade or break down. But I would say markers are the most difficult thing because water-based markers don't behave at all like alcohol-based markers, and Copic markers, Prismacolors, Pro markers, all those kinds of markers are alcohol-based, and so you're able to layer them and blend them without it eating through the paper. So with these ones that I got from the dollar store, they're definitely difficult because they had these tiny little nibs, and so when I tried flicking the marker, it wouldn't leave a fine point like the feather blending technique. I couldn't really do that. And when I tried blending and layering, it would eat through the paper. I'm lucky that this paper is somewhat thick. The only other paper they had at Dollar Tree was this sketch pad, and it had super, super thin pages, and it was just for sketching, and it was not for this kind of media. So that's why I just bought a big piece of poster board and cut it up. Since there was really no good color to use for skin except for my brown pencil, I decided that I would go with an unnatural color, which is pink, because I really wanted to use the watercolors. I did not want to try going in with the markers for the skin because they'd just be too weird. I don't know, the colors are just very bright colors, and so I didn't want to do that. And the pencils, when I tested them out, they're very waxy and not pigmented at all. They were really not good. So definitely my favorite out of all of them was the watercolor set. And so that's what I decided I wanted to use for the majority of the picture, at least for the base color, and then I could go in with the other ones to add some detail. So when it came time to come up with a sketch idea, I really had no clue, but I decided to base it on the glitter colors that I got. I got a pink, a turquoise, and gold, and so I wanted to incorporate colors like that into it. And I also really, really liked the green when I swatched it on the watercolor set because it was almost a little more on the blue side, and so I figured it'd be really nice to mix the green and the blue together. So I decided I wanted teal and pink, and I also quite liked the purple watercolor, so I decided to add in some purple as well. I didn't end up going with any kind of gold detailing. I just used the glitter. You'll see what I do later on with it, but yeah, my main colors were the teal, pink, and purple, and some reddish color, like a bit of red and blue too. So, just sketched it out directly on the paper since I figured using a light box would be against the rules for the cheap art supply challenge. It's not like there's any hard rules for this. It's just do whatever you want. But I tried to keep things as inexpensive as possible, so I sketched on the piece of paper and then inked on top of that directly. And the little paper you see off to the side was a little test paper because I wanted to know if the paints or the markers would smear the pen ink. And the only thing I found that smeared it was the yellow marker. And so I decided to just stay away from that. But for the paints, it was fine. So I made sure to just do a really thin line of pen and not thicken any areas that I would normally thicken. I decided I would color it first, then go back over the line art to fix it up and make it look nicer. So here I am going in with the paints, and to make the pink, I took some red and put it directly on top of the white paint and mixed it around. And then I decided to use some purple for shading because with such limited colors, there's not much you can do. It's an 8-color set. One of the colors is black, one is white. So there's not a whole lot you can do for shading other than using a different color. And because of this, though, the shadows aren't very dark. And I didn't really feel like going over top of that with marker, at least not for the skin, because I felt like I would ruin it. It was just, I was trying really hard to stay away from those markers for the most part. But I would like to do a challenge, a cheap art supply challenge where I only use markers. I'd probably use Crayola ones though, like the fine tipped ones, the skinnier markers. I kind of want to buy a pack of those and try making a complete picture out of them. I already know it's not going to be that great, but hey, it'd be fun to try at least. And the pencils I got compared to Crayola pencils, way worse. Crayola pencils are actually kind of nice. I really like them. They're a lot better than sort of random non-branded pencils that you find. Like, let's say you get this little art kit and it comes with some markers, it comes with some paints, and it comes with some pencils. Usually those pencils suck. And Crayolas are actually not very bad. And I know some people were kind of offended, like, oh, you called this a Crayola challenge? Like, I use these all the time. I take offense that you consider it a challenge, but that's not really what I mean. Sort of the point of these videos is to show that even though you have cheap art supplies, it doesn't mean you can't make nice art. Sure, it will hold you back to a certain extent, but ultimately it's your knowledge of how to draw and color and lighting and all that kind of stuff plays a bigger role than what the art supplies are. It's your actual knowledge that matters more. Sort of like when I did the right hand challenge, because I'm left-handed. I tried drawing with my right hand, and I'm not ambidextrous. It was just that, like, of course it turned out decent, but that's because I was going really, really slow. And my knowledge of drawing is still there. Just because I'm using a different body part or a different medium, it doesn't mean I suddenly forget how to color or forget how to draw, you know? So, yeah. So I actually think this picture is pretty nice, even though it's cheap art supplies. Markers, like I keep saying, that's where things get a little iffy for me. But like pencils and watercolor, not bad. And just a disclaimer, I'm not very used to watercolors at all, so I can't really say how this compares to professional watercolors because I've never used professional watercolors, and I'm also not used to watercolor painting techniques, so that probably held me back a little bit in this picture, but I think they're pretty nice. One thing though is that when they dry, they're not all that pigmented. They're all right, but not a whole lot of pigment there, and so yeah. But I overall quite liked them, and I really liked my brushes. I thought they were pretty nice brushes, like probably on par with what you would find at an art store for their really, really cheap brushes. Obviously they're not the same as the fancy ones, but the really cheap ones you can still find in art stores, it's the same kind of paintbrush, I think. So I was pretty pleased with that. I didn't use the filbert at all. I just used the round brush and the stippler. Mostly just used the round throughout. So I was really pleased with this, and like it just proves you don't need the fancy stuff. Like eventually you might want to upgrade, but don't feel like you need to have brand name supplies and you need to have Copics. Like, I mean, I would still stay away from water-based markers if you're really passionate about art, but there's, you know, you don't have to go for all the top brands. So, yeah, I feel like I'm kind of being a broken record now, so I'll stop saying that. But yes, also a point I wanted to mention is that I was actually live streaming during this entire process, and it was super fun. And I'm going to be live streaming a lot more often now, so I want to get into a schedule where I'm live streaming once a week for art and once a week for video games. I don't know if I can commit to specific days, like I want to say Mondays and Fridays, but I might say, okay, the art stream is going to be like either Sunday or Monday, and then the game stream is going to be either Thursday or Friday. Like I kind of have to give myself a range. I can't just pick one day, because there's always something that's going to come up, but I'm not going to be able to stick to that schedule, because it's different than a YouTube video schedule, because, you know, it's not like I'm drawing this live. I do it on my own time, and then all I have to do is post it at the scheduled time. It's not like a live stream where you're committed to staying there for several hours at that posted time. So, yeah. As you just saw there, I used a marker to add in some detail into the hair, and then I went back over with some of the pencils to add some more color. Like I used a light green, and I used some white, and then I used some blue for the shaded areas. And then I also used the purple pencil to add some scales to her, and used a couple other colors just to add a bit of detail to the scales. I wonder if I touched on everything I wanted to mention. I feel like there are so many things, and yeah, hope I didn't miss anything that I wanted to say. Okay, now is when I'm going back in with my ballpoint pen to thicken some areas and just go back over the lines, because they did lighten when I erased, and they lightened again when the paint covered them. And so, yes, plus I just left all the lines thin initially, like I mentioned, just to minimize smearing. And now I'm going in for the background, and I decided to just mix some blue paint and black paint to make kind of a dark background, although it didn't really end up being that dark. But yeah, just to sort of indicate she's underwater. I don't know. I just filled it in with some colors. And here I'm going with the white acrylic paint and adding some details there. Adding some dots to the bra area. And now we're going in with the glitter and the stipple brush. So, oh, this is when everything turned magical. I think what I really, really liked is that I used pink glitter on the purple areas, because I didn't want to make her skin glittery, but that's the only pink area, and so I used the pink on the purple, which I think is so great how it's just slightly different color. It makes it really pop. And then I used the teal on the teal hair, but then I also added some gold into the hair, and that's when it really just was like, ha! I thought it looked so good, and I'm probably going to be using this glitter a lot more. It's not very dense glitter. It's like a lot of clear gel and a little bit of glitter, which is understandable because it's a dollar store item, you know, can't complain. And then I had to mount it onto the glitter paper. I tried using a glue stick. I didn't think it would work, and sure enough, it did not. So then I tried tape. I was like, I don't know if this is going to stick to the glitter. It did not. It kind of worked, but I gave up, and I used my E6000 glue, which is the only liquid glue I have. So I hope you guys don't think this is cheating, because really mounting it is totally optional. It's not really even part of it. But it was the only thing that would actually stick to the glitter. So, that is the finished picture. And at the end of the video, there's going to be an annotation that'll link you to my Crayola pencil challenge that I did a couple years ago, and there'll also be a link in the video description if you want to check that out. And if you want to make it to my other live streams, be sure to follow me on Twitch. Again, link in the video description so you don't miss out, because I won't always make a YouTube video to announce it. Anyway, glitzy, glitzy mermaid girl. I like it. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.
Oh, look, you're back under there. How did that happen? Yeah, how did that happen? What, you want to be back over here with me? I'll build you a bridge. A leg bridge. Come on, baby. What?